All right, hey everyone, fellow UPSC aspirants out there. Today we are diving right into a topic that's been in the news a lot lately. It's got a lot of people worried, and rightfully so, because it really could have an impact on India's strategic interests. Um, we're talking about the possible return of U.S. sanctions against Iran and what that might mean for the Chabahar port project.
Yep, big implications.
So this is crucial for us as UPSC aspirants because,
Oh, absolutely.
global dynamics, these are key for both prelims, mains, exam.
For sure.
So we're going to break this all down for you today, analyze the potential ramifications, and look at what India can do.
Exactly.
So to set the stage, Trump's maximum pressure campaign against Iran, it's back on the table. What's the core idea here, and how is it playing out?
Well, basically, the U.S. is trying to cripple Iran's economy.
Okay,
The goal is to force them to renegotiate the nuclear deal.
right.
And it's not just talk either.
Oh, no.
The U.S. Treasury Department is blacklisting entities, folks who are involved in smuggling Iranian oil.
I see.
This hits Iran right where it hurts their revenue stream, which also funds their military, their regional allies.
And what does this actually mean for Iran's economy in concrete terms? I mean, what kind of impact are we talking about?
Well, think of it like this. Iran's economy is already struggling, right? This kind of pressure, well, it could push it toward a breaking point.
Oh, wow.
The U.S. wants to significantly reduce Iran's foreign currency reserves. They're targeting major buyers of their oil, like China. This could lead to a steep decline in their GDP, potentially pushing them into a deeper recession.
So this is a big move, and it raises the stakes for everyone involved.
Yeah.
But here's where it gets really interesting, I think, for us in India. The potential impact on the Chabahar port development project.
Right.
Can you remind our listeners why Chabahar matters so much for India?
Sure. So Chabahar isn't just another port.
No?
It's a strategic linchpin for India. First, it gives us access to Afghanistan and Central Asia, bypassing Pakistan.
Right.
This isn't just about trade, but about influence, and alternative supply routes,
Right.
especially for essential goods, humanitarian aid, all that.
I remember when Pakistan blocked India from sending aid to Afghanistan. That was a real wake-up call for everyone, and it highlighted just how vital an alternative route like Chabahar really is.
Exactly. It showed how quickly geopolitical realities can disrupt even humanitarian efforts.
Yeah.
And, let's not forget the economic benefits. Using Chabahar, well, it could significantly reduce transport costs and time for Indian goods reaching those markets.
Right.
We're talking about potentially boosting our trade and strengthening our regional influence.
So it's not just about avoiding Pakistan, it's about opening up all kinds of new economic opportunities.
That's right.
We've already put a lot of effort, a lot of resources into Chabahar, haven't we?
We have. India has been actively developing Chabahar for years.
Okay.
There was a key agreement signed back in 2016, then a long-term deal in May 2024, with India committing, significant investments.
Yeah.
This shows our long-term commitment to the project.
So with the U.S. potentially ramping up these sanctions against Iran, what could it mean for Chabahar? I mean, could we be looking at a major setback for India's strategic goals?
Well, that's where the situation gets really tricky.
Yeah.
If the U.S. decides to fully enforce sanctions, include on Chabahar, it would definitely throw a wrench into India's plans.
It sounds like we're really at a crossroads here.
Yeah.
And so this is the million-dollar question for us as UPSC aspirants. What are India's options in this scenario? How do we even navigate this kind of tricky, this geopolitical situation?
Well, I think one key strategy, one thing India really needs to do is to engage in direct, high-level diplomatic dialogue with the U.S.
Yeah.
We need to make a strong case for why Chabahar is vital, not just for India, but for regional stability, even for U.S. interests in the region.
Right?
We got to get them on board.
So what kind of arguments could India use? I mean, how do we convince the U.S.?
Well, I think a crucial point would be to frame Chabahar as a counterweight to China's growing influence. Especially with this whole China-Pakistan economic corridor thing going on,
Yeah.
India could argue that Chabahar provides a real alternative.
Yeah.
It helps to balance the scales and prevent any one power from dominating the region.
So it's about positioning Chabahar, I guess, within this larger geopolitical game, right? Showing how it fits into the U.S.'s own strategic goals in Asia.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And remember, this isn't the first time India has faced U.S. sanctions on Iran.
No.
Back when sanctions were imposed on Iranian oil exports, India successfully secured a waiver.
Oh, okay.
They really highlighted the importance of Chabahar for delivering humanitarian aid to Afghanistan.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
So could India draw parallels to that situation now? I mean, could we argue that Chabahar is crucial for stabilizing Afghanistan, especially now after the U.S. withdrawal?
That's definitely worth considering. I mean, the situation in Afghanistan is still really fragile.
Yeah.
And India obviously has a very clear interest in seeing peace and development take hold there. Chabahar could be a really vital tool for facilitating reconstruction efforts,
Uh-huh.
providing all that much-needed humanitarian assistance, something that actually does align with U.S. goals as well.
Right.
It's a win-win.
And this is where Pakistan comes into the picture too, right? I mean, their refusal to allow India access to Afghanistan through their territory was one of the main reasons Chabahar became so important in the first place.
Precisely. Pakistan's strategic calculations have always revolved around limiting India's influence in Afghanistan,
Right.
which, they see as their backyard.
Yeah.
This is where that whole concept of strategic depth comes into play.
Okay.
The idea that controlling Afghan territory provides a buffer zone against India,
Right.
keeps them at arm's length.
So, in a way, Pakistan's actions have unintentionally pushed India and Iran closer together
Absolutely.
and made Chabahar even more strategically important for both.
Yes, and India should really emphasize this to the U.S. It's not just about bypassing Pakistan. It's about creating a more stable and prosperous region, which ultimately benefits everyone, including the U.S.
It sounds like India's diplomatic skills are really going to be put to the test here.
For sure.
I mean, we need to convince the U.S. that punishing Iran through these sanctions could actually backfire.
Yeah.
It could push them closer to China and end up undermining U.S. interests in the region.
That's right. This is about more than protecting India's investments in Chabahar.
Yeah.
This is about shaping a more favorable geopolitical landscape.
Right.
India needs to make a compelling case that actually aligns our interests with those of the U.S.,
Right.
showing that cooperation, not confrontation, is the best path forward.
Okay, so we've talked about the strategic importance of Chabahar and the potential impact of U.S. sanctions. But let's get down to the specifics here.
Okay.
How much has India actually invested in this project?
Well, the figures are pretty substantial. India has already invested over $370 million in developing Chabahar.
Wow.
And you remember that long-term deal we talked about, the one signed in May 2024? Well, that includes another $120 million in direct investment, and then a further $250 million in financing.
That's a serious commitment.
It is.
Really shows how much India believes in the potential of Chabahar.
Absolutely. And it's not just about the financial investment.
Right.
It's about years of planning, diplomatic efforts, and the vision of a more interconnected and prosperous region that Chabahar represents.
So for our UPSC aspirants out there listening, think of this.
Yeah.
Imagine you're representing India in these negotiations with the U.S.
Okay.
How would you even frame the argument? How would you emphasize the strategic value of Chabahar while still acknowledging those U.S. concerns about Iran?
That's a great question. And this is where understanding those complexities of international relations really comes in.
Right.
You need to be able to see the issue from all these different angles, weigh the competing interests and find a solution that, well, it might not be perfect, but it serves the greater good.
It's almost like this high-stakes game of strategy, right?
Yeah,
Where every move has all these consequences.
for sure.
And for us UPSC aspirants analyzing these scenarios, this is crucial for developing the strategic thinking that we're going to need in our careers.
Absolutely. I mean, the world is increasingly interconnected.
Yeah.
And grasping the intricacies of global politics is vital. Situations like this provide a perfect case study, for honing those analytical skills.
Let's recap what we've covered so far. We looked at the U.S. maximum pressure campaign.
Right.
We explored the potential consequences for Iran's economy and for Chabahar.
Uh-huh.
We highlighted India's strategic interests and the need for, some proactive diplomacy.
Yeah.
But before we delve into potential solutions, I think there's one really crucial aspect we need to examine.
Right.
Iran's perspective. What are their interests and what are their potential responses in this scenario? I think this is going to be key to understanding the full complexity of this situation and how it might unfold. That's a really good point. We can't analyze this, just from India or the U.S. perspective. Understanding Iran's position here, well, that's crucial. What are their likely goals and their potential reactions?
Well, Iran's in a tough spot, right?
Yeah.
They're facing, severe economic pressure, and their ability to export oil, which is like a cornerstone of their economy, well, that's being threatened.
Right.
Their main interest here really is to just relieve that pressure, maintain their economic viability.
So what options do they even have at this point?
Well, they could try to, circumvent the sanctions.
Okay.
Maybe find alternative buyers for their oil or rely even more heavily on their existing allies like China and Russia.
Yeah.
They could also, I guess, try to increase pressure on the U.S. and its allies.
In what way?
Well, potentially through proxy conflicts or maybe even disruptions in the region.
I see. So that really adds another layer's complexity to this whole thing.
It does.
So coming back to India, with all these different factors at play, What are some concrete steps we can take to protect our interests in Chabahar?
I think, as we've talked about, strong diplomacy with the U.S. is going to be really important.
Yeah,
India needs to highlight why Chabahar is so strategically important, not just for India, but for the region's stability and even, for U.S. interests.
right.
We could argue that having a functional Chabahar actually helps counterbalance Chinese influence,
Okay.
and it provides another route for development assistance to Afghanistan.
Beyond these direct talks with the U.S., are there any other avenues that India could explore?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, building a broader coalition of countries that support Chabahar, that could be a powerful strategy.
Okay.
This could include, engaging with Russia, who also has a stake in regional stability and economic development.
Yeah.
India could even consider exploring maybe some limited cooperation with China on Chabahar. Well, given their interest in access to those Central Asian markets.
So it's about, like, finding common ground and building these partnerships, even if they might seem a little unlikely at first.
Exactly. In this kind of geopolitical situation, flexibility and creative thinking are really key.
Right.
And India needs to assess all those potential avenues, weigh the risks, weigh the benefits, and be ready to, adapt its strategy as things change.
And for our UPSC aspirants out there, this is a real-world example of diplomacy in action.
It is.
There's no easy answer here, but there is this complex web of factors that you have to consider
Yeah,
and multiple potential approaches that you need to be able to, explore.
you got it.
So this deep dive, I think, has been really packed with insight.
I hope so.
We explored the potential return of these U.S. sanctions on Iran,
Right.
the strategic significance of the Chabahar port for India,
Uh-huh.
and all these intricate geopolitical dynamics that are at play here.
Ab-
We also, examined the challenges and the opportunities that this situation presents, really for India, highlighting, the importance of proactive diplomacy, those strategic partnerships, and I guess some creative problem solving.
That's what it's all about.
If you found this discussion helpful for your UPSC preparation, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel.
Yes.
We're going to have more deep dives into critical current events, all kinds of topics.
all the time.
And as always, we encourage you to share your thoughts, any questions you might have in the comments.
Please do.
We're always eager to hear your perspectives and continue this conversation. So until next time, keep learning, keep questioning, and best of luck with your UPSC journey.